that achieve economy figures you wouldn't believe. And we go back through the mists of time to the days when tachographs were the stuff of science fiction. But we begin with an apology. Those of you who have tuned in to see a road test of the Bentley Continental will no doubt be disappointed to learn that just 2 days before we were due to film it, somebody turned it into a banana-shaped Bentley. Well, you can take heart for 2 reasons. First, you're not as disappointed as I am, and second, we've got something just as special. If I were to give you unlimited money, what car would you buy?
Ferrari, no doubt about it.
A red Ferrari.
Had to be a Ferrari, wouldn't it?
A red sports car. I think I would buy a Ferrari. Have to be a Ferrari, wouldn't it?
Odd, isn't it, that just about everyone in the world would chop off an important limb or two if it meant they could have a Ferrari? And yet the so-called experts, the people who write about cars like this in the motoring magazines, are forever telling us that you could never live with one on a day-to-day basis, that its fiery Latin temperament would be all too much after a while. Well, that may be the case with the F40, but what about the 348 here? It only costs a miserable £76,000. Surely you could live with one of these every day of the week. Well, there was only one way to find out, and yet again I had to sacrifice myself in the name of this programme. I had to drive around in this for a week. A lot of people ask these days why on earth you would spend all the extra money to buy a Ferrari when for a whole lot less you could have something like a Nissan 300 ZX. They'll tell you that it's every bit as fast, that it's just as striking, and that it's a whole lot easier to drive, and they're right. But a Nissan 300 is not a piece of motoring folklore. I'm going to go to a party tonight, and when I'm asked what sort of car I'm running around in at the moment, and I will be, I shall say a Ferrari. And I shall enjoy saying it almost as much as I enjoyed driving it.
Crazy Jenny and her mission man were back in the alley trading hands. Along came Wild Billy with his Frenchy man, all doing up on Saturday night. Well, Billy slammed on his coaster brakes, said, anybody wanna go to Greasy Lake? It's a night out on the dark side of Route 88. I got a bottle of rosé, let's try it.
It's time, and you've got to stick to orange.
By the time we made it up to Greasy Lake.
No, it's a 3.4. You see, that's got a 3.4 litre,
3.2 litre V8 engine. It didn't have a catalytic converter. Now mine,
it's got a catalytic converter. The old one, the old 3 to 8, that never had a catalytic converter, so it means I can be green and fast.
And she kissed me just right like a lonely little band. She felt so nice, just a song that's living in the night, all night. Janie don't know what she do to her. Spirits in the night, in the night. Stand right up and let her shoot through it.
So the lady looks fine, but unfortunately you're unsuitably dressed.
I thought a Ferrari was supposed to open doors. Didn't have much luck with that one. In a morning, you'd probably expect a Ferrari to be harder to coax into life than Lazarus. or a nightclub bouncer. But with fuel injection, it's up and running the instant you turn the key. Turning the wheel is a deal harder, but once extricated from its overnight slot, I was off for another day of soaking up the admiring glances, snarling past people at 30 miles an hour in a car that can top 160. Daft? Yes, of course, but surely only as daft as buying a four-seater and then spending 90% of the time all on your own in it. You could certainly never accuse the 348 of wasting space. Now, I fit just fine, but Yuletide foliage, well, that's another story. Squeezing things into a Ferrari, then, is hard work. But squeezing the Ferrari through things is not as hard as you might imagine. The visibility is good, but from time to time, I did wish other drivers would give it a wider berth. Mainly because if it had been damaged, someone would have come and taken it away. I'm not going to pretend that a Ferrari is easy to drive. This is not heavy, this is my clutch. Same goes for the steering, and the gearbox can be a bit recalcitrant first thing in the morning. So no, the Ferrari is a pain when you're in a traffic jam. But all cars are a pain when you're in a traffic jam. The difference is, in a Ferrari, you can at least dream of the day when absolutely nothing else would do.
Filling up a car with petrol is always an expensive business, and I wonder how far this tankful is going to take me. Well, from here in Birmingham, with a bit of luck, I should get about as far as Aberdeen. But if this car was as efficient as the most economical car ever, then believe it or not, with the same tank full of petrol, it could take me twice around the world. Mind you, the car wouldn't look quite like this. This bizarre collection of wingless birds gliding around Silverstone's club circuit was competing in the 14th Shell Mileage Marathon. It's an event dedicated not to speed, like most at Silverstone, but economy. How far can you go on a gallon? Or rather, how little fuel do you need to cover 7 laps at a minimum average speed of 15 miles an hour? For some, it means a very sophisticated design based on pretty fundamental parameters.
It looks kind of a needle shape, or rather, if you look from the side, it looks like a shoe. And what we did when we started designing them was we placed our driver back then. He was lying on his back on a table. Then we kind of projected his shadow on the wall and placed the engine on it and draw the outline for those things. And then we kind of reduced it a little bit.
The result is a drag factor of 0.09, about a third of that for the best production car, and a useful economy, even though aerodynamics don't matter so much at such low speeds. Not that the normal technique is to drive at a steady 15 mph.
You have to build your speed and then you cut your engine and then like coast for quite a way and then restart your engine to build the speed again.
This was Ripley Mill Hill School's second attempt with a new, more sophisticated car. It was funded through a proper business run by the pupils, so getting to Silverstone at all was an achievement, but it wasn't all deadly serious.
I certainly like the pupils to enjoy it, and I think that's the main thing, that's the key one for now, to do a project that you can involve a lot of pupils in school for pleasure. At the same time, it's obviously important to bring in the educational side. We've brought it in through running a business, and we've also brought it in through the engineering side and learning about the use of fuel and how valuable it is.
The result of their endeavours was a figure twice as good as last year's, at 420 miles a gallon. That's still only a tenth of the UK record, set by King's College London with this Heath Robinson device. Buried beneath a tangled mass of electronics, a tiny engine using a ringless piston. If it could be persuaded to run properly, hopes were high.
Tests have shown that we should be able to get the engine to run about 8,000 miles to the gallon. Now with rolling resistances, that'll probably drop down to about 7,000, but that would be the ideal condition. So if we should be able to get about 6,000 in an ideal case.
In the end, the rubber band broke, or some such fault, and no score was registered. These are temperamental machines to be treated gently, so it's not surprising that breakdowns were common. For a while, it looked as though Downs End School wouldn't manage to complete a run, as the clutch disintegrated. After winning the junior section last year, they were aiming for 1,000 mpg, with a revised version of their beautifully engineered device.
Simon? Success is two things for us. Success, for me, is partly winning, or even doing well, but it's partly about turning 12 small boys into junior engineers, teaching them as many things as possible about using tools, using materials, constructing mechanisms, making them work, the discipline of driving carefully to a schedule on the track, all those things. I think they've learnt a lot. And that works out just over 1,000 to the gallon, which is what we're aiming for this year.
There was no restriction on who could help build the car, but driving it called for special qualities: smoothness, consistency, and an absence of bulk.
The last time I hit a problem like this was when, age 7, I outgrew my pedal car. Most of the designers around here are taking advantage of the fact that the minimum age for driving in this competition is 11, and so they're designing their cars fairly small. So it's not surprising that I, 6 foot 3 inches tall, can't actually fit into them. Mind you, I'm not sure that if I could, I'd actually want to take them out into urban traffic. I never really did fancy a Sinclair C5.
These vehicles may not be designed for traffic. After all, how often is a car in danger of being squashed by a motorcycle rather than vice versa? For the last 3 years, the top prize has gone to the group of Honda employees called Team 1200. Alone along the pit lane, they discouraged prying eyes. Not that you could visually detect the advances in combustion technology that team manager Yukihiro Ogura reckoned were the secret of their success.
燃焼効率を追求してやるからだと思うんです。燃焼効率
6,142 miles per gallon was 4% short of their world record, set with a 6-stroke engine. But it was good enough for them to win again. Next up were the 2 entries from the French Lycée La Joliverie in San Sebastian, not quite breaking 5,000 mpg. For their compatriots, Epsilon from Strasbourg, all was confusion. A restart took precious drops to get over the finishing line, with just 8 seconds to spare before the 38-minute deadline. The best school turned out to be Downs End again, shy of their 1,000 mpg target at 892, but a well-deserved result for all the team. Maybe there are engineers in the making here to challenge the Japanese. Meanwhile, the English win on eccentricity.
Well, believe it or not, I've actually found one I can fit in. Not only that, but it's street legal as well. And the designer, Harold Marfleet, claims it can do 450 mpg. And on that, I'll be able to get to Aberdeen on just 1 gallon.
It should.
Believe it or not, this is the actual car that Michael Caine drove in the film The Italian Job.
In the film, it may have looked like the mafia crushed the car, but that was only a mock-up.
The real car survived, and after years of obscurity, it's been rebuilt and we've tracked it down. But its whereabouts and ownership must remain a secret.
In Austria, oilseed rape is being used to provide an environmentally friendly motor fuel.
The seeds are pressed, and after processing, the oil can be used as a direct substitute for diesel in cars and trucks.
So-called biodiesel costs about the same as ordinary diesel at the pumps, thanks to favourable tax rates.
Emissions of carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides and sulphur are all drastically reduced when compared with conventional diesel.
One supermarket chain runs its trucks on it. The only problem with the idea is the smell of cooking fat that comes from the exhaust.
Hot hatches have always sent shivers down the spine of the insurance market, but these 80s success symbols now look to be the bargain of '92, as long as you can afford the insurance. The used car trade says that the recently announced new insurance groupings are hitting hot hatch values hard.
F-plate 16-valve Astras are changing hands in the trade for as little as £4,400. Just a while ago, they were in the £6 grand territory.
It's the same with the Peugeot 205 GTI 1.9, which is also down in value. Dealers are reporting they're losing sales due to unpalatable insurance premiums. So if you're after a bargain pocket rocket, now's the time to buy. Just check those premiums first.
I like steam engines and thought it might be a nice idea to make a Top Gear item about them. But producers know best, and mine said no. I thought I got away with it one weekend last summer when we stumbled upon this little lot at the Red Rose Steam Museum near Manchester. Obviously something was going on in this Lancashire field on Saturday afternoon, with commercial vehicles of all shapes and sizes appearing. In fact, they were there to prepare for their annual raid on Yorkshire, otherwise known as the Historic Commercial Vehicle Society's Trans-Pennine Run. Among those present were the Tennant family from Lanark.
You've had a long drive down here, Gillian.
Yes, we have. We left last night at 11:45 and we arrived at 8:30 this morning.
You drove through the night from Scotland?
Yes, quite a that way, less traffic for us to hold up.
The vehicle was built in 1955. It was used 11 years in general haulage, then a showman had it before I bought it about 1986. The original engine was an AEC, of what size I don't know, but it has now a Gardner engine at 112 horsepower. And with the trailer, that vehicle could gross legally 32 tonnes with only 112 horsepower.
That's quite low, that power, isn't it?
It's very low against present-day standards, because for 32 tonne now, they wouldn't be thinking of anything less than 300 horsepower.
Ah, comment ça va?
Bonjour. I'm not French.
Oh, you're not?
No.
What are you doing in this then?
Well, we found this in France in April this year, and drove it back and totally restored it here in Manchester. The chap was still using this as his regular everyday transport when I found this in April, and it's just so different, it's just so unusual.
And what do all these other competitors think of having a foreign vehicle among them?
I don't know yet. I just don't know. It's I just hope it's going to make it to Harrogate.
Well,
it's made it from Finisterre, so there's no reason at all why it shouldn't make it to Harrogate.
Right. Ah, the Bedford, once upon a time Britain's most popular truck. Did you restore this, Bill?
Yes, from I bought it in scrap condition in 82, and it took me while 1986 to do it. Upside at bungalow. That's where I live, like, you know, in drive beside the bungalow. And then in 1988, I managed to drop on the original Scammell coupling and trailer up in Middlesbrough.
And it's a Bedford Scammell. Well, that's fairly unique, isn't it?
Well, yes, because Bedford used to supply chassis and cab to Scammells, and Scammells used to fit the scoupling on to take their trailer. That's how you come to have Bedford Scammell badge on. And you got 2 guarantees then. One from Bedford's and one from Scammell's.
And I see you're in the Bedford Drivers Club. Does that still exist?
No, no, that don't exist now. That was when you could get a room for 1 and 6.
Oh, I see. So all drivers of Bedford lorries have special rates?
They had special rates, yeah. That's what BDC, what Bedford Drivers Club.
We couldn't find digs for 1 and 6, but we had a better night than most of the participants who slept in tents or in their vehicles. 7:30 a.m. and that's the first of the convoy set off on its merry way across the Pennines. Only another 290 more to go now, but I'm not going to hang around here. I'm going to take part in this amazing extravaganza. Where's my friend Bill and the Bedford Scammell? Morning. Call them nutters, eccentrics, or what you will. This is an event for the enthusiast. Starting on the famous East Lancs Road, it tends to stick to the major highways. Now, you might think it's all very easy, but there's a lot of skill in driving these old-timers, so you've got to know what you're doing.
The idea with these old vehicles is to try and jump traffic lights. If you can. Then you're not having to set off from a standing start.
Trundling through Todmorden, the convoy then took to the hills. At Hebden Bridge, which calls itself the centre of the Pennines, there was a goodly turnout to observe the proceedings. I left Bill and his Bedford to his own devices and thought it was time to hop on a bus. The question was, which one? This 1955 ex-Leeds City Transport Leyland Titan looked like the one for me.
Enjoying it?
Yes, very much indeed.
You've come all the way, have you?
Yes, all the way from Manchester to Harrogate. It's a 71-mile run.
Have you paid your fare?
Oh, we're all friends. We sort it out between us.
I got my bus pass.
You got your bus pass? You've handed over the driving bomb?
Yeah. At the moment it gets a bit tight in there. A bit warm and a bit tight.
I mean, what's it like to drive, okay?
It's very nice, yes, very pleasant. A bit bumpy, but I mean, obviously it's only meant from going from one stop to another, but okay, I've no complaint.
This is the life. In a moment I'll tell you why. The most famous fish and chip shop in the world is one of the unofficial stopping points on this year's Trans-Pennine run. But everything's pretty unofficial about this event. There are no time cards, no time schedule, very easy route instructions, and no penalties. In fact, all they've got to do is get there. Suitably nourished, we all set forth, providing everyone could find their way out of the chip shop car park on the final leg over the hills towards Harrogate. Although the event keeps off the steepest mountain roads, one or two look to be running out of puff as the day wore on. It's 60 years since this machine first took to the road, but here's a relative youngster. Mr. Sibley's Albion started life in 1937 and is still going strong.
We've done 150,000 in it, but it started with ICI in Billingham in 1937, running cement out. They had 3 lorries, and then they commandeered 2 in the war and left them with this one, so I expect it worked day and night then. And after that, it worked for part of the Leyland Group.
Now, I mean, this is actually real coal on the back, is it?
That's right, yeah.
When are you going to deliver that?
When I get back home, probably take me most of tomorrow to get back home, and then it'll be delivered after that. We bought it 25 years ago, and we bought it so we could use it for business and go to rallies, and we're still using it.
So it's paid for itself, has it?
I should hope so, yeah.
The last thing you expect to find in a field in Harrogate is a London bus, but here on this event there are 3 of them, and just as in real life, they all arrive together.
Tom, this is a fine machine. A lot of work gone into it?
Yes, 14 years.
You've been working on it for 14 years?
Yes, 14 years, hard, solid slog. Well, when I bought it, it was very run down. I rebuilt the engine, put some new bearings in, pistons, re-rung the pistons. It's had a different gearbox. We've rebuilt all the bodywork. It's had new panelling on, new window frames, and as you can see, a nice coat of paint.
2 years ago, Top Gear followed the Southport Blackpool bus rally, where one of the stars of the show was William Hunter's Bedford OB, beautifully restored by Norman Wade.
Have you had to do much to it since we last saw you?
No, nothing. We do nothing to it. Well, it's checked, you know, but only petrol and oil, that's all, and very little oil, actually. It's been about 2,000 miles since we saw it last, so it's just about run in now.
The Bedford OB, Mr. Hunter from Tarleton. Mr. Wade is accepting the
I must say, the enthusiasm of everyone was quite infectious. I couldn't believe how hard everyone worked, and they called this a hobby.
It's a very acceptable hobby too. It's well, it's credit to the coach, not to me, you know, basically. I mean, although we don't put a lot of oil in the coach, you know, we have to burn a bit of midnight oil to get it here in this condition.
Well, 90% of the vehicles have made it uphill and down Dale here to Harrogate. Now, if you ask all the drivers here, they'll say that the joy is having taken part, but there has to be a winner, and this is it. The best turned out vehicle is John Ward's splendid 1947 Foden timber tractor, Big John.
You know, I said I wanted a Lamborghini Diablo. Well, I've changed my... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just writing a letter to Santa, okay? Well, I've changed my mind. What I'd really like now is a Ferrari 348 GTB. I shall be a good boy, I promise. Jeremy. That, I'm afraid, is the end of the series. We're back again in February. But on December the 27th, there's Reverse Gear, motoring highlights from 1991. And on January the 2nd, there'll be a look back at this year's Lombard RAC Rally.